Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching another one of my interviews. I am at Pelican Institute's Policy for Public here at Baton Rouge, and with me today is Grover Norquist. Grover, thank you so much for being on today. I really appreciate it.
Good to be with you.
Well, I got to tell you, your name is well known amongst a lot of people, but I don't know if people realize how much you're fighting for lower taxes, here in our country. Do you get that often?
Well, I run Americans for Tax Reform, and the major project we do is we ask all candidates, governors, state legislators, congressmen, presidents, to sign a pledge to the American people that they'll vote against any tax increase, so no tax increase. And then secondly, we're working in the 50 states, and about a dozen are phasing out their state income taxes to zero, and that's what's keeping us busy, is the states that say, we want to join the 8 no-income tax states,
Right.
because we see they've got growth, they've got people moving in.
And what I like about that is you're basically following the guidelines of our Constitution, the 10th Amendment, because obviously the elected officials in D.C. aren't doing their job, to be able to lower our taxes. Because I think what happens, and I'll ask you that, when they get to DC, they go to D.C., that they're going to reduce taxes and put money in people's pockets, but they get to D.C., do you think they get addicted to that government money?
Well, in Washington, D.C., the Democrats that passed the welfare state that we have today have made it all mandatory spending. So you would need 60 votes in the Senate to change some of these welfare programs, and that's difficult to get. And you'd have to have the House and the President all at the same time. It's the people who constructed FDR's welfare state wisely, from their perspective, made it very difficult to undo it. There isn't taking a look at it every year or two and saying, is this working? There's no asking, is this working?
Right, exactly.
We know that a lot of stuff the federal government does doesn't work, isn't improving things. The aid to families with dependent children, welfare was making things worse, not better. And we did get some of that sent to the states, and states had about a 30% improvement on how that one program ran.
Exactly.
But there are more than 100 welfare programs in Washington, D.C.
And not a lot of people know that. And one day I'll have you on the show for a longer period of time, and we'll talk about break some of those down.
Yeah.
But I interview more and more young people on my show. I'll go to events, and you got these kids come out of college, and our country, our founders fought against taxation without representation. More and more young people, I feel today, are being taxed without representation. They can't vote, but yet our elected officials in Washington are running up the national debt, and they're going to be the ones paying the taxes, and they weren't represented. How do you feel about that?
Well, it's a real problem. Of course, it's very easy for politicians to give government employees very big pensions. Mayors love to do that. Governors like to do that. The federal government's backed away from that a little bit because now most federal employees can have a 401k or an IRA, and you don't end up with unfunded liabilities. But
Exactly.
the federal government only has 2 million people working for it. State and local is 20 million. So the federal government's costs are writing checks to people who don't work for them. The state governments tend to spend all their money on personnel, and they have put themselves in a position where there's several $1 trillion unfunded liabilities in state and local pensions. They keep hiring. They keep those pension structures. Utah voted 10 years ago to go straight to 401ks, IRA for all new hires. So for the last 10 years,
wow.
Police, firemen, teachers, everybody, here's your pension. It's 10% of your salary. You can add 10% to that. That goes into a 401k. That's yours. You want to walk out the door 3 years from now? Take the money with you. You want to stick around for 20 years? That's what you got. There were no ugly surprises either for employees going like Detroit, oh, I'm sorry, we went bankrupt, we forgot, or ugly surprises for taxpayers. We promised Martha $1 million and we don't have it, so we're going to take it from you. But that eliminates what Utah did, and what some states are moving in that direction, but all 50 need to do that, is where the pensions are fully funded, there are no surprises, there's no committing today's 12-year-olds to be paying for the rest of their lives.
Exactly.
For guys who are 30 years old now.
Exactly. That's a great. I love how you broke that down. I'm always talking about freedom on my show, and I believe that in America, freedom is under attack in a lot more ways than what we talk about publicly or the most. And you know about the ones we talk about the most right here, the First Amendment, Second Amendment. How do you feel that freedom is most under attack in America?
Well, the effort by the federal government to take a whole bunch of power into its own hands, and particularly to hide it in the hands of an unelected bureaucracy. Every once in a while, the FDA decided today. Nobody elected the FDA, Food and Drug Administration, to anything. What do you mean they decided
right.
today? Who are these people? The CDC, the Communicable Disease Committee, or whatever.
Yeah.
All of these things are deliberately, often, put into the hands of bureaucratic, quote-unquote, experts who can make decisions independent of the American people having a voice in them. And then Congress said, oh, I didn't do that. That was the agency that did. OSHA did that. FEC did that, something. And there is a move among jurists, and I think we may have a majority on the Supreme Court now, that says there is no such thing as bureaucratic power. No bureaucracy can make a decision without the legislature approving it. And that would reduce the hundreds of thousands of regulations we have and get them down to a fewer number of laws that people are responsible for. If there's a good law, people should be able to say, thank you, Congressman, I'll vote for you again.
Right.
If there's a dumb law, they should be able to say to the Congressman, goodbye. Instead, the Congressman has all the dumb ideas pushed over into a bureaucracy, and he goes, I didn't vote for that. Some bureaucrat did. I'm very disappointed that bureaucrat got away with that. The courts may force Congress, the House, the Senate, and the President not to have these executive orders that are independent of Congress, but rather to have Congress actually put it into law with words that mean what they say they mean.
I love the fact that you've got this broken down. Everybody thinks you're just a tax expert and no taxes of any kind, but yet you really made the attachment to the bureaucracies and where freedom is being robbed. I always look at our country and how divided it is, or the perception of division, and I always think there's more ways that we can unite. What do you think are some of those ways that we can unite to solve some of these problems?
Well, I think if you look at issues, most people are in agreement on many, many issues. What you do have is a very small minority that pushes things through the press, and then they have a small number of people in the bureaucracy which make decisions and nobody quite knows how they happen. I mean, you have issues that overwhelmingly people believe that parents should have access to anything in the public school system that's put in front of their kids. They should be aware of what it is. And yet a handful of bureaucrats and school boards that don't like being second-guessed,
right, exactly.
and teachers' unions which don't want to be asked how they spend their days, have said no to that. But when light was shined on it in the last several years, there's been a real movement on parents' part to either get their kids to homeschool them or to bring them to private school. Now 11 states have passed education savings accounts, which is
working on that here in Louisiana,
which allows parents. The money doesn't go to the school, it goes to the parents, and the parents take it to the same school if they're happy with their school, or to a different school if they're not happy. We don't need parents to if a school wants to have dirty books in their library, they can, as long as they let every child leave with their money if they don't like it. Okay,
exactly. I love that.
It's when they say we're going to have drag queens. You want to have drag queens? Have drag queens.
Yeah.
But parents need to know,
Exactly.
and two, parents need to be able to walk out the door with their kid to a school that they're. And all the parents who want their kids in drag queens, will take them to your school. You get rich. You'll get rich
Exactly.
selling drag queen school, or not. But the idea that what they do is freedom of speech, no, it's not. You are serving parents, and you can offer that. You can have the school
Right,
for
exactly.
odd things, and if people want it, all good. But parents should be in control, backpack. The money we spend on education should be in the backpack of the child. And when a parent says he's going to be at home, that's one thing, or he's going to be at a religious school or the public school down the street, which isn't weird, okay?
Exactly.
And teaches kids to read. The other, reason we end up with discussions about drag queens is because the public school teachers don't want to have a discussion about whether they're actually teaching kids to read. As odd as it sounds like they're under attack.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
The attack on people for having drag queen reading hour or whatever is nothing compared to the attacks they'd get if people understood how poorly their children are being taught. That's what really scares parents.
And you know what? I like to use this as a catalyst that I think parents should get more involved, in this. Once they're aware of, like you said, when you make it known that, hey, there's drag queen story time in this school, parents get more involved. Maybe elected officials that are against it get involved, and they go there and read instead and lead by example, because it's the best way. But I love the fact that you're connecting school in a way to capitalism. When you treat a school like a business, and you say your tax dollars follow the child, and you're treating it like a business, then that business has to be able to perform to be able to get their customers back. And when you treat it like a business, the economy grows because competition breeds excellence or excel, in other businesses. So I appreciate you link that.
Oh, absolutely. Look, public school system is a monopoly. It's very difficult to leave. You have to pay twice for your kids' education.
And is the government against monopolies?
The government is a monopoly.
Right, exactly.
States are monopolies at the state level, federal government's a monopoly at the national level, and they've created the post office, which delivers mail the way a monopoly would deliver mail, unlike email, which somebody else invented. But what you do have with public schools is, unless parents are allowed to have their tax dollars follow their child to whatever school they want, that's competition. Mm-hmm. And competent teachers and competent public schools will go, absolutely, bring it on. I want more freedom to teach better, and we will attract many students to our school because it's that way. It's the teachers or the teachers union people who go, oh, if people had a chance to leave, they'd all leave. Well, if you really believe that choice is the end of public schools.
Exactly.
What you mean is you think your school no one would choose. Why are you staying in a school like that? Why are you being part of a school like that? Why be in a failed monopoly? Why wouldn't, if you want to teach kids, go to a school that lets you teach.
Exactly, and let your kids learn too.
Yeah.
But I have to ask you one more question before we wrap up. We talk about, I know you're a proponent of no more taxes, no more raising taxes, and I agree with you 100%. Everything you preach 100%. So if we're gonna have ESAs where the tax dollars follow the child, how does that work if we're not raising taxes anymore, or we're not introducing new taxes in any way? And how do we stop it?
Well, right now we've been increasing spending and teacher salaries for 40 years, 50 years, always being told that if we paid the same teachers with the same union rules more money, they'd teach differently. No, they don't. Paying the same person with the same competence level and with the same restrictions that the unions put on them doesn't get you a better anything. And so when you disentangle that and say the money will follow the student, they can go to schools where excellent teachers can be paid more. People who really aren't up to be teachers can find another job. There's no shame
or
in
learn to perform better.
Yeah, and there's some people who just can't do certain things or who do need to get their game up. And the best way to have that is competition where parents, informed by their children learning or not learning, decide which schools they want to participate in. And that will mean that the best teachers will be paid a lot more, and teachers who can't do it will do something else. And some teachers are just held back by the union work rules, which don't allow them to do better. So that needs to be set aside.
And I guess also you can also compare the public school system to a welfare type of program, where when you're getting the money, you're not always required to have to perform for it.
Yes.
And so if the money moves with the child, schools are going to have to perform better.
Monopolies protect themselves and serve themselves. Businesses with competition serve consumers.
Grover, thank you so much for being on my show today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I really hope to get you back sometime soon. You're an amazing person with a wealth of information, and we got to have some more time later to do that. Everybody else, please share the video, share the interview on William Wallace for America with your friends who are interested in making their communities better. Thank you so much, guys. Have a great day.